Lesson 7 today is about decimals. We're going to be multiplying, dividing, and estimating answers. So our first step is to multiply decimals. And our problem is 4 and 1200ths times 63 and 2/10. Now when we do multiplication of decimals, all we have to do is write our numbers vertically, 4.12 times 63.2. The decimal point does not have to line up. Now we go through our math. We're going to say 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times 4 is 8. We've got our placeholder 0 because we're working in the tens place now. 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times 4 is 12. We've got two placeholders because now we're working in the hundreds place. 6 times 2 is 12, we carry the 1, 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 more is 7, and 6 times 4 is 24. Now we have to find the sum of all these, so let's go ahead and add. 4 plus 0 is 4, 2 plus 6 is 8, 8 plus 3 is 11, plus 2 more is 13, carry the 1, 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 7 is 10, carry the 1, 4 plus 1 must be 6, and our 2 comes straight down. Now the tricky part when we work with multiplication of decimals, and the part you have to keep in mind at the end, is to move the decimal point out of the factors 1, 2 times, and then a third time. So we move 1, 2, 3 spaces total with our factors. So we have to move 1, 2, 3 spaces total with our product. So we now have our answer. Our answer is going to be 260 and 384 thousandths. And we're all done with this first question. If you have a question, please rewatch this part of the video or write it down for our next class. Alright, when we're dividing by a decimal, this one, we've got to write out 0.084, that's our quotient, it goes in the box, or sorry, that's our dividend, it goes in the box. We're looking for our quotient. 0.35, that's our divisor, so it's out of the box. Now what we have to do is the same thing. We can't divide by decimals, so we have to move the decimal point out of the divisor and move it into the dividend. So we move it over 2 in the divisor, so we move it over 2 in the dividend. Our new problem is going to be 8.4 divided by 35. Now, 35 never goes into 8, and our decimal point comes straight up. 35 is going to go into 84 two times, because 2 times 35 is 70. We subtract, we have 14 left over. We can't have a decimal with a remainder, so we've got to have a 0 on the end of 8.4. We'll bring that straight down. And 35 is going to go into 140. Well, 35 went into 70 twice, and 140 is double 70, so the answer must be double 2, which is 4. So we've got 140. We're going to subtract. We've got no remainder. Our quotient, we've got it right there, must be 0.24 or 24 hundredths. And we're all done with our division of decimals. Remember, move the decimal out of the divisor and then move it into the dividend, always moving to the right in both numbers. Alright, let's go ahead and divide 31 by 8 and write the quotient as a decimal number. So, 31 divided by 8. Well, 8's going to go into 31 3 times, so that gives us 24. We're going to subtract, we've got 7 left over. We need to write the answer as a decimal number, so we need to say 31.0. We're going to bring down the 0. 8 is going to go into 70, 8 times. We'll remember to bring the decimal straight up here, because when we have a decimal that we're dividing, we bring the decimal straight up. So it's going to be 64, 8 times 8. We subtract, we've got 6 left over. We need to have another 0. 8 is going to go into 60, 7 times. We get 56. We subtract, we get 4. We're going to add another 0. We get 40. And 8 goes into 40 5 times. Because 8 times 5 is 40. We have nothing left over, so our quotient is now a decimal answer. We have that answer of 3.875, or 3 and 875 thousandths. And we're all done with this question. Please make sure you've got this copied down into your notes as well. Let's divide and round to 2 decimal places. Now, this problem, notice our divisor is a decimal, so we're going to have to move the decimal point over. Let's set it up. 0.004415. We're dividing it by 0.032. So we're going to move the decimal out of the divisor 1, 2, 3 times, so it becomes a whole number of 32. So we have to move it over 1, 2, 3 times. So we now have 4.415. So that's going to be our division problem. 4.415 divided by 32. Decimal point comes straight up. 32 never goes into 4. 32 goes into 44 one time. We've got 32. We're going to subtract. We get 12 left over. We're going to bring down the 1. 32 is going to go into 121. That's a tricky one. Let's go ahead and let's guess. Let's say it's going to go in 4 times. Well, yeah, let's try 4. 32 times 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. We got 128. That's too big. That's okay, because we now know that 32 times 3 will be the right answer. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. We get 96. So we must have a 3 and a 96. We're going to go ahead and subtract. Okay, we can go ahead and borrow from the 2. 11 minus 6 is 5. We're going to borrow from the 1. We now have 11. 11 minus 9 is 2. We have 25, and we're going to bring down the 5. 32 is going to go into 255. Another good question. Let's go ahead and say, let's try 6 times. 32 times 6. 2 times 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 1 more is 192. If you're wondering how I chose 6, well, I know it had to be bigger than 4, because 4 was 128 when we multiplied 4 times 32. So when we do these, sometimes we need to try different numbers to see what's closest. 32 times 7 would be next. 7 times 2 is 14, carry the 1. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 1 more gives us 22. We've got 224. Let's try the next one. Let's try 32 times 8. 8 times 2 is 16, carry the 1. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 1 more is 25. We have 256. That's too big. So we must have a 7 next. That was 224. We can go ahead and subtract, and you might be continued to keep going on with this problem. But read the question carefully. It says round to 2 decimal places. So we've got 2 decimal places, and the 7 tells us what we're going to do. Remember, if we're rounding, we're going to round here, and we're going to look to this number to tell us what to round it to. Is this closer to 0.13, or is it closer to 0.14? And your answer should be, oh, that's closer to 0.14, because 7 is greater than 5. We have our final answer. We didn't need to keep going, because we only needed to round to 2 decimal places. Be sure you always read the question carefully. It can save you a lot of time. Okay, let's go ahead and estimate. This is our last problem for today. When we estimate, we're finding an approximate answer. So if we're going to estimate, let's go ahead and take these factors and we'll round them. And I'm going to say 6.78, that's pretty close to 7. And 0.0537, that's pretty close to 0.05. Notice I'm just rounding to the first digit that I have. The 6 was in the ones, the 5 was in the hundredths. So 7 times 0.05. 7, and we'll multiply it times 0.05. 7 times 5 is 35. We know we've got to move that decimal over 1, 2 times. 1, 2 times. So we get an answer of 0.35. Our answer is going to be about equal to 0.35. That's our estimate. Squiggly equal signs mean about equal to. Alright, we'll continue this with our lesson practice on page 30. Make sure you've got your notes completed, and I'll see you soon.